Hey, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I'm going to be introducing you to our calendar system. Today I'm going to go over what items we have to help you create calendar pages, and also be sure to stay through the end of the video because I'm going to show you the step-by-step process to creating a calendar layout. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Right here I have a 12 by 12 calendar page, and as you can see it has all these squares. They are 1.5 by 1.5 inches wide. Plus on the back it does come with a mosaic grid, which is really handy if you want to create a calendar, so that's pretty cool. And with the calendar system we have 4 die sets. One of them is the calendar square blocks. And of course, this set is handy for cutting a lot of squares, and we really use the squares a lot on layouts where we're showing an entire month. So if you plan to make a lot of month-long pages, this is a very handy set for you. In this set, you have 4 dies that fit the calendar grid, plus the stitch dies, which also fit the grid. It just has the stitch marks, plus it has 4 layering sizes for your photos. And we also have the calendar strip set. And this set is very handy if you want to show a week on your calendar layouts. So your calendar layouts could be used for a month, or it can be used for a week. So that is really awesome as well. And the calendar strip set does fit the measurements of the calendar grid. And as you can see, there's 5 different sizes here. And I'm just going to go over really quick of what the sizes are. So one of the strips is 5 squares long, so it can fit on the calendar grid vertically. It doesn't quite fit it horizontally, but you can still get a pretty big chunk horizontally. There's also one that covers 4 squares on the calendar. So as you can see, that's 4 squares long. And then you can fit it on there vertically as well. And then we have one that is 3 squares long right here. So that's pretty nice. It's nice that there's all these sizes. And of course, there's one that's 2 squares in length. And of course, there is one die in this set that will fit just 1 square on the grid. We also have the stitched set, which is the same exact measurements as the strips set. So just so you know, if you're using the stitched set, you will also need to use the layering set. So I'll show you that when I get to my page example of how those work. And there's also the layering set, so these sizes are a little bit smaller, so that way you can layer your photos on top of the stitch set or the strip set. I know those both probably sound very similar. Anyway, so as you can see here, the layering set is a little bit smaller. So again, it's a great set for fitting your photos on top of the sizes that fit the grid. All right, and that's all of the die sets, but I have 2 other items to show you. So you may have noticed on the calendar page there is an empty section at the top, and you can do a lot of things with that part of the paper, but we have these laser cut months, and you can purchase one sheet and it has all 12 months on one sheet, and it comes in different colors. Right here I have it in black. And so you can use these for each month of the year, and I'll show you how to use it a little bit later in the video. We also have washi tape. So our washi tape is called Happy Days. It has all 7 days of the week plus the words Happy Day and Fun Day. We provided this washi tape because this way you can start your calendar on any day of the week. So it's a very handy tool. We are loving this tape, and I will also show you how to use this in a little while. All right, now I'm going to show you the step-by-step process on how to create a month in review layout. I will have a week in review calendar layout in a different video, but today I just wanted to show you how everything works and my steps for creating this calendar page. So let's get started. The first thing I recommend doing is planning out where everything's going to go. Here I penciled in where I'm going to place certain photos, paper, and some journaling. And I also wrote the dates down so I don't get them mixed up. So I based this on the February 2021 calendar. So most of my calendar is going to be square, so I'm going to be using the Square Blocks calendar die set because that'll be the easiest and fastest way to get everything cut. So when I start a calendar page, the first thing I like to do is cut out the paper if you are layering your photos. So for my calendar, I do plan to layer my photos on top of paper mats. If you're just going to use photos, you wouldn't need this step, but I like to plan out where all my paper is going to go before I even touch my photos. And just so you get an idea of how it works, I'm just going to show you how the stitched frame works. So one of these is a stitched frame. I won't be using that on my layout, but I just wanted to show you how it looks when you cut it. All right, so I have my squares here, and these were all cut with dies that will fit the calendar grid size. And this one right here has the stitches around it. So I just wanted to show this because when you look at the die, it looks like it'll have an open part to it that you can just lay your photo inside or cut your photo with this die, but just keep in mind it's all closed. It does not actually make like a frame. So if you use the stitch die, you will need to use the layering die if you plan to place a photo on top. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind for the stitched dies. So for my calendar layout, I'm going to have quite a few photos filling out this layout, and it kind of can be hard to remember where everything was supposed to go. So I write the dates down next to the photos. If you don't have room on your photo, you can always use something like a post-it note. So my calendar page is about to be covered up, and I won't exactly remember what I wrote in which spot because some of my spots are going to have photos, but some of them are going to have some journaling and some number dies. So I made sure I took this picture to remember where everything was supposed to go. I have also used little post-it notes to help me plan where everything was going to go. And then I will pick up the post-it note after, once I'm starting to put everything down. All right, now all of my paper squares are cut, and I'm just going to place the colors randomly on the layout. The yellow piece, I'm putting in that corner, and I'm going to have another long strip of the yellow paper. But if you want to do this kind of random design like I'm doing, I recommend cutting 4 to 5 different colors. And of course, your color scheme may be different from mine. Maybe you want to do every other color. I just kind of like the look of it being random. I think it's a little more fun. All right, now that I figured out where all my squares are going to go, I'm going to glue them down to the calendar grid here. And basically, when you put down a square, it is going to cover all of the lines. So the squares do not fit inside the lines. It goes over the lines, over the entire square, just so you know. So that is pretty much right here is what you can expect. So these squares are really going to be tight within the calendar grid. So just take your time, and as usual, I recommend repositionable glue because you never know when you want to switch things around or if you place your square, you know, incorrectly by accident. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of these squares and I'll be back in a moment. So now I'm going to cut my photos, and they are printed very small, and I have the layering size squares here, and if you get the square set, there's 4 of them, so you can cut 4 photos at a time. I have a 5th one because I also have the layering strips set. So this is what's nice about having multiple of them, and they're so small. And I printed my photos here. They're 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. You may want to go with 1.3 by 1.3 even because that might be a little bit tight. I like to make sure my die is going to really cut in that photo correctly. So I recommend if you're using an at-home printer or if you have an option to resize your photos, I put it at 1.3 inches. If you plan to have your photo cover the entire width of the square, so the calendar grid size, that's going to be 1.5 by 1.5 inches. You may want to go a decimal up and say 1.6 when you print instead. And obviously, I got my first batch of photos cut, and they did cut through. And because I'm not tearing it apart right now, but now I'm going to cut my last 3 photos here. So it's really nice. Basically, I got this all cut in 2 rolls. So you can cut these pretty quickly, and I'm going to leave them stuck together or attached to the paper so I can glue them easier. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of my photos as well. All right, now I'm going to glue my photos to my calendar layout. And again, I left these all attached to the sheet so I can glue them. It's just an easier way to glue them down. And I did write the date next to each photo so I know where to place it on the calendar. In this case, the calendar, the first day starts on a Monday. So I didn't have any photos for the first, but I did for the second. And I'm just gluing the rest of the photos here. They kind of got mixed up when I printed them. Usually I try to print them in the order of the date, and when I printed them this time, they kind of got a little mixed up for me. All right, so I'm just following along what the date is next to my photograph. So 4, 5, 6. And again, really important to plan out your layout to know where your photos are going to go. And in some cases, you may want to use a little bit of journaling instead. I'm also going to be using number dies, as I mentioned earlier. You could also do a page with no photos. You could have a month where you just write down all the exciting events and not have any photos, and it could be still a very nice decorated or very nicely decorated layout. So, of course, when you're a scrapbooker, you want to show a lot of your photos. So, many of you will probably want to show photos on the calendar page, but it is fun sometimes to have a nice option for if you don't even want to use photos. And I'm just figuring out the placement of my last few photos because towards the end of the month, it wasn't quite as eventful and there's less photos. So I have to count with my finger here on which day am I supposed to put this one on. So sometimes it's helpful if you have the number written down somewhere, but I was able to figure it out fine. All right, so these are all the photos for my calendar page. All right, I'm going to finish up my squares by writing down a little bit of information on a few of them. So right now I'm using a pencil, and then I'm going to look it over and make sure the spelling's okay and the letters are in the right placements or whatever. And then I'm going to go over the words with a black pen. So you don't even have to use photos on the calendar layouts. I'm sure many of you would like to use photos. So that's why I love the dies. But really, the calendar pages could even be purely for journaling. You can journal in what you did each day or your thoughts about some of the days. So this is just another way to journal. All right, now I'm erasing those pencil marks. And I'm also going to be adding dates and places where I really didn't have anything to write. And I kind of like adding these in. It kind of shows a bit more that, yes, this is a calendar. You just have to make sure you, like I'm doing here, I have to remember, okay, what was that date again? So I don't get it mixed up. So these are die cuts from our numbers 2 die set, and I used the Xyron Create a Sticker machine to glue the back of each one. I love that machine, especially for these number dies, because usually, and the alphabet dies as well, I usually have so many little pieces to glue down. The Xyron Create a Sticker machine is great for these little numbers. All right, now I am going to add the washi tape, which I absolutely love. And we made the washi tape to help you start your calendar on any day of the week. In this case, I'm showing a full calendar. So I'm going to have it start on Sunday. And I make sure that at least as I'm eyeballing it, I make sure one of the words looks centered above the square. But as you can see here, I didn't have to rip up each day of the week. I can just keep it as this one long strip. At least if I started on Sunday. After Saturday, it has the words fun day and happy day. And so if you start on a different day other than Sunday, you will have to tear it up. But if you started on Sunday, you get one strip over your blocks. So we love the washi tape. And again, maybe you live somewhere where you start your week on Monday and you can start on Monday. Or if you're doing a week calendar, you can start on whatever day your week started. All right, these are the laser cut months, and I'm going to be using the word February. And I just am leaving the letters all attached because it's just so much easier to glue them. You may have a glue stick or something else you can glue them with, but I left it all attached to the paper again, so it made gluing easier. And this is a very thin font. So if you decide to use these months, be very, very careful when you take them off the 12 by 12 sheet. They are more on the fragile side, but most of the papers or the colors we have available are thicker cardstock, thankfully, so it makes it a little bit easier. Anyway, since I glued the back of the month, it kind of got stuck to my paper here, so I'm very, very carefully pulling it up. So my title got glued to my cardstock here, but you may want to get something like parchment paper or something where it could come off a lot easier than cardstock. If you need, to stick it down somewhere, that might be helpful. And I usually just eyeball where it goes in the center. And just so you can see the F is not attached to the rest of the words. So some of the words, the entire word or the month word is attached, but quite a few of them, like the word February, the first letter is not attached because of the way the font works. So I tried to pretty much make it as centered as possible. I mean, if you want to get it perfect, you can certainly get out your ruler or other things to get it done, to get it straightened out. I I don't feel like I have the patience for that sometimes, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and you want to make sure you stick it down very carefully. Just take your time. But I do love these. First of all, it helps fill up that top space, which the top space of the calendar is great because there's a lot of flexibility of what you can do at that top. But this is a easy, embellishment to place on the top of your calendar. So really, and it fills the space really well. And I don't necessarily feel like I need to add more. Sometimes I do, but I don't feel like it looks bare or there's too, it looks too boring with just the monthly letter there. All right, I also want to add in the year, so I'm just drawing that in with pencil. Well, first pencil, and then I'm going to use my black pen again. So I kind of just centered the 2021 over the center section or center column of the calendar grid. So I really wanted to put the year in there. You could also use the alphabet dies, but I kind of thought it'd be nice to have something that was handwritten on my page as well. And now I just erased my pencil marks, so I think that looks really nice. All right, now I want to fill in the empty section at the bottom here, and of course you have different options on how to fill that in. The strip that is 5 squares long is too short, which this will be pretty unusual because most months have 30 or 31 days, so for the most part, one of the dies will work to fill in those empty parts of the calendar month, but mine ended on 28th, so I didn't have a die quite long enough. But if you really don't want to hand cut, you could use the 5 square in length strip and the 1 square size to fill in that space, but I don't really want that cut mark basically to be in there. So I'm going to go ahead and hand cut it, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly here. So what you can do is measure out the length of the squares. It happens to be 9 inches, and the width is 1.5 inches. So I need a block that's 1.5 by 9 inches. So I have the Mosaic Moments cutting mat here, which is fantastic. It's always good to have a cutting mat around because you never know when you'll need it. Even though we have dies, there's an opportunity like now where you just never know when you need it. All right, so I'm going to measure 1.5 inches on the mat. So on our mat, the 1-inch marks are pretty thick and the 1/2-inch marks are kind of not quite as thick, but it's pretty easy to measure that. All right, and then of course I'm going to turn my cutting mat and measure 9 inches. All right, so just start from where my paper starts and count 9 lines basically. It started at the half mark. All right, and that's it. So it's a pretty easy cut to do. And like I said, you just can get your ruler out and measure that space. And as I said, it's not going to be very common that you'll need to do this month. Just February just happens to be too short. All right, so now it's measured correctly and I can place it right in that empty section. All right, and that completes my calendar layout. All right, we have reached the end of today's demo. I hope all of you learned a lot about the calendar system. We are really excited about, like I said, it's not only a new way to scrapbook, it's also a way to journal as well. And I hope to make more videos using the calendar months. I hope you guys love them. They're really great. I love that there's all the dies and all these different options included in this system. All right, definitely let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about the calendar system, and be sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.